Welcome to Investors Guide. This is our budget special show. Now, we heard those big announcements from the Finance Minister this morning. It's time now for us to find out how they will impact our spending and our saving power and how much money we'll have left to invest. We also need to re-strategize our investment portfolios to make the most of those new rules. Now, to help us understand how this budget will affect our finances, I've put together the strongest personal finance panel we have in the country right now. Let me do a quick round of introductions. Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti, Chairman of BDO and one of the finest tax experts in this country. Pankaj Razdan, the CEO of Aditya Birla Financial Services, will give us a full view of our entire portfolios. Anuj Puri is the Chairman and Country Head of JLLM, and he's going to help us with our decisions to buy a home and our decisions to invest in real estate. No Investors Guide show is complete without Dhirendra Kumar, the CEO of Value Research, who joins us right now from our Delhi office. Dhirendra has been helping us with our investments for 3 years now, and he continues to do so. Gentlemen, this is the third union budget we're spending together. It's always an absolute pleasure to have all of you on this show. I want to get straight to it, but before we start talking about the impact, we've put together this report for you, so you can take a look at the big announcements that we heard today from the Finance Minister that affect our money directly. Take a look.
Said in Shakespeare's immortal words, I quote, "I must be cruel, only to be kind."
And our Finance Minister stayed true to Shakespeare's words. As expected, the Direct Tax Code will not be implemented this year. And while no timeline was specified, the first step has been taken to align current tax slabs with the DTC proposals. Under the new tax slabs, the first 2 lakh rupees of your salary are completely tax-free. You will need to pay 10% tax on earnings between 2 lakh and 5 lakh rupees, 20% tax on earnings between 5 lakh and 10 lakh rupees, and 30% tax on any earning above 10 lakh rupees. This move is expected to help you save about 22,000 rupees every year. Also, since the DTC treats men and women as equals, experts believe the new tax slabs will apply to both genders. The budget speech did not specify any changes in the basic tax slab for senior citizens, and they will remain at status quo. However, senior citizens with no business income will not be required to pay advance tax. Now, while your annual savings will increase, your household budget is about to get much steeper. The FM has proposed a hike in service tax and general excise duty from 10% to 12%. With private investment featuring high on the FM's priority list, a new equity scheme was also launched. The Rajiv Gandhi Equity Savings Scheme will give a 50% reduction in income tax to investments up to 50,000 rupees. However, this scheme only applies to investors with an annual income of less than 10 lakh rupees and will have a lock-in period of 3 years. Investment advisors are still awaiting more details on the scheme. Now, the tax deduction on infrastructure bonds was not mentioned in the budget. But considering the major thrust the budget will provide to the sector on the whole, the current tax exemption limit is expected to continue. On to your savings now. If your annual income does not exceed 5 lakh rupees, an interest income of up to 10,000 rupees on your savings accounts will be tax-free. Gold, however, will become costlier. The customs duty on India's favorite precious metal has been doubled from 2% to 4% and will apply on gold bars and coins. The FM in his budget also provided some relief to home buyers in the lower income segment. If you take a loan of 15 lakh rupees or less for a home that costs up to 25 lakh rupees, your interest on the loan will be lower by 1%.
Alright, so that's the gist of it. Those were the big announcements we heard that directly affect our money. I want to start talking about tax first, because those were really the biggest announcements. Shailesh, we don't have a blueprint to the DTC. It's something we were expecting, that we'll have a revised deadline for the DTC. But he's beginning to slip it in already. We've seen a couple of changes that look a lot like the DTC to us. Give us your rating of this budget. Are you happy with what you've seen in the personal taxation area?
In the personal taxation area, I think this budget would merit a 2.5 on a scale of 0 to 5.
So it's an average budget?
It's an average budget. The reason why I say that is the spirit of the DTC was that the exempt income limit should be raised to 3 lakhs. And the clutter of deductions and exemptions should be reduced. What the finance minister has done as an interim measure is kept the exempt limit at 2 lakhs and added the Rajiv Gandhi scheme, which has not been specified in the fine print of the finance bill. This is going to come in as an absolutely separate provision, which is not completely clear now. And also there are some tinkering type benefits, 5,000 for medical checkup and such like small tinkering kind of deductions which have been made. Instead, the spirit of the DTC should have been captured. But take the other end of the spectrum, where to ostensibly curb black money, every major transaction that we as individuals will enter into will be subjected to a 1% tax collection at source. So if I buy property, whatever value, 25 lakhs and above or 5 lakhs and above or whatever, 1% will be deducted or collected at source. And I cannot get that registered unless I show that that 1% tax has been collected at source. If I want to buy gold, the same thing applies. If I want to do a transaction of trading in coal, which applies, of course, to a larger context, but same.
So it increases transparency and it helps the government keep a tab on it.
What it does is, it gives a huge handle to track individual transactions. And even if there is transparency or if there is no cash involved, the question about how much will be probed remains an open issue.
Right, Pankaj, I'm going to come to the Rajiv Gandhi investment scheme in a little while. We were also expecting that the tax deduction under Section 80C, which is currently at 1 lakh, there's been an argument that inflation has surpassed that 1 lakh limit a long time ago. We were hoping that that would be taken up to 3 lakhs also, perhaps. We didn't see that happen. So, are you disappointed with the moves within that personal taxation space?
I think Sailesh summed it quite well. It should have been a roadmap. What he talked about in the budget should have been fundamentally a stronger roadmap to DTC. Because ultimately, cumulatively, this all adds to what DTC actually wants to do it. So they have done it, but they have not really moved in a step what they should have really taken in. It's a very baby micro step only for showing that, hey, I know this is the way I want to go, so I'm just showing you a direction on that. So it doesn't add any significance as of today. So even adding, for example, Rajiv Gandhi you talked about, if you're going to ask me, I don't know anything about it. So I only heard that I'm going to put 50,000 rupees is allowed and 25,000 rupees can be saved. I don't know the modus operandi. I don't know how it's going to operate. Whether it's going to be for the collective scheme or only direct equity, how does it really help, how it is going to really spread out. So number of questions are there.
And on one hand, we're leaving out ULIPs, we're leaving out ELSS from the deduction, and we're increasing direct equity. So that's a loaded gun.
I would just rather, I would sum up that way only. In fact, they had to do something which could have made very credible step towards going towards DTC. Fine, you could not do it this year, you want to do next year, but where are those steps? I believe those steps have been taken in the form of GST. The movement, despite what are the economic conditions, global markets, if there are movement in service and excise tax, my guess is they have clearly identified essential and non-essential, and they've been able to move something over there. So there is some credible step for whatever pressure of getting more revenues on table. But on the DTC, which have been a very significant big reform, and I believe all of us, I think all three are consistent over here, have been talking and debating about for last 3 years. So I think I would sum up that no credible step on that direction.
Anuj, home loan deductions. First of all, they've been left out of the DTC, but before we get to that, there was also a demand that the finance minister increase the 1.5 home loan interest repayment deduction to maybe 3 lakh rupees. That hasn't come yet. Do you think there isn't enough push right now for home loan takers, for home buyers in the country?
It's interesting. I think the finance minister has looked at it, real estate, in two separate parts. One part he's looked at it on the affordable housing, and clearly he's repeatedly, said those words, affordable housing, low-cost housing, 4 or 5 times in the budget speech, and there have been a fair amount of initiatives that he's taken on those. The rest of the real estate he's completely left out. So clearly, if you are not within the affordable section, he's not addressed. And obviously, we were disappointed that on the rest of it, given there was a thought that it will be an industry status granted to real estate, the real estate mutual funds, he would have spoken a little bit about it. There was no reference to the REITs. We also thought that there was going to be some flexibility on the FDI in real estate. He's really not spoken on that. So to the real estate sector, it's been a very sort of a socialist budget, reformist in its approach, but still very socialist because it's really for the Aam Aadmi. And in that section, he's helped the interest waiver scheme, where it's the interest subvention by reducing it by 1% loans below 15 lakhs.
In fact, if we do some simple math on our deduction right now, and if it's 1.5 on home loan interest at 10%, that allows me a home loan of 15 lakh rupees, which can buy you nothing in this country right now. I want to bring in Dhirendra. Dhirendra, you've been talking to us for a while about the fact that the DTC doesn't really give senior citizens too much to take home. Now we've seen the finance minister seems fairly determined to slip in the DTC into the current system. Are you happy with what you heard on the budget today?
Not really. I didn't see a very clear. In fact, it is violative of the principles of DTC. And we are seeing it, there's a third year where it has happened, since the first draft of DTC came around. One was that, now we have that 20,000 rupee for infrastructure bonds. Now we have this Rajiv Gandhi equity scheme. Now this Rajiv Gandhi equity scheme, the operatives are not out, but, based on whatever was, in his speech, it looks to be downright dangerous. I don't know if it is a slip. If a first time, there are two expressions. One is the first time investor and investing directly into equity. If the first time investor is going to invest directly into equity and not equity funds, then, it has the potential to spoil Rajiv Gandhi's name. An uninitiated investor getting into equity for the first time, because these two expressions seems to be the key. The other is that, I don't see a roadmap, because these all will have to be reversed if we have to really align ourselves with the principles of DTC. I think one interesting thing which looks inspiring was, at the same time, I would say that this Rajiv Gandhi equity scheme is very interesting from another standpoint. It has the potential to get in. Of course, these two things are the risks. The great potential is that it has the potential. It can actually equate the amount of money, magnitude of money coming by way of FII investment. In many years, it could be more than that. And this is unlikely to be the hot money. That apart, I think, one more interesting thing which I like principally was the tax rates, getting inflation adjusted. I think that's a very logical thing, and it's a move forward. We won't have to wait every year to anticipate what's going to be the great favor we are going to derive from this budget.